All right, guys, welcome to the show. Today on the show, this will actually be, I believe it's going to be I think it's going to be my 40th episode at this point. I actually have Ramsay Taplin of blogtyrant.com. He's on the show today to kind of share his story, and we're going to talk a lot about guest blogging. So welcome to the show, Ramsay.
Thanks for having me, John. Good to be here.
Yeah, no problem. Glad I could finally get you after I know you've been traveling for some time, and
Yeah, I should apologize in advance for all the jet lag mistakes that I make in this interview. I'm pretty tired still, but it's good to be here.
yeah. So do you kind of want to like share with folks, people that aren't familiar with Blog Tyrant, how you got started online blogging? I know this isn't your first blog.
Yeah, so I think it started way back in high school. I was really into fitness and martial arts and things like that, and I started a little website sort of talking about my own ideas with all those kind of topics, and it all sort of I reckon I was probably 17 and I made a fitness kind of ebook deal, and I remember selling that ebook to a guy from Holland for $65, and that was when I sort of realized I could maybe make some money online, or it was something that I was quite interested in, and that sort of sparked off the whole online blogging adventure for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So basically you started out by selling a product that you were able to market on the internet, and that's really where you got onto this whole blogging thing.
Yeah, I mean it was a terrible setup. I remember I caught the bus down to Chinatown in the city to collect the money by Western Union money transfer because I had no idea about payment gateways or anything like that. But yeah, it really kind of sparked the buzz for me, and that was quite interesting. And then it sort of went to the next level for me in uni, which was when I started another fitness blog, which I ended up selling, that was when I decided to take it a little bit more seriously.
Right. Now I know, I wanted to ask about this. I know reading some of your articles, you talked about kind of being anonymous originally when you started some of those blogs, and that gave you the ability to turn around and sell it and not, put so much of a name into the brand. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and kind of like that strategy, or maybe how how that's maybe changed for you with Blog Tyrant?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so one of the first blogs I had was a fitness blog, and I started this blog specifically because I thought it was a good niche to try and make a little bit of money in. I was in uni. I used to rock up to uni every day and wait to go to the lectures, and then get so bored in the lectures I'd just go to the computer rooms and start blogging. And that was sort of that blog was anonymous, and that way I could write content myself, but also get other people to write content for it. And I ended up selling that one for about $20,000. And then I thought, well, that'd be cool if I could do 4 or 5 of them every year, which was sort of an ambition I had. But with Blog Tyrant, the idea initially was when I registered that name, blogtyrant.com, I wanted to have like a blogging marketplace where you could buy and sell articles and links and blogs themselves, and do all the internet marketing that goes around blogging. I wanted to have that like a complete package for bloggers, but I wanted to populate it with content first to start getting some Google rankings for. And I wrote this article, How I Sold a Blog $20,000 in 8 months, and it went on the front page of Dig and Delicious, and brought me a huge amount of traffic in the first week. And that's sort of how Blog Tyrant started. It was a lot of coincidences and accidents, but yeah, I was anonymous there for the first 2 years, because it wasn't so much about selling it, because I sort of fell in love with that blog really quickly, and the readers, it's such a tight-knit community there. I don't think I could ever sell it, but the anonymous aspect was sort of more was a little bit of an experiment in a way, because when we did finally do the reveal on viperchill.com, it was a great opening for, I guess, the next phase of that website.
Yeah, no, I remember reading about that, and that's pretty interesting how you kind of like revealed your identity through what was it, a guest blog through ViperChill?
Yeah, I mean, I was in Bali with my fiance on a holiday, and I just proposed to her actually, so it was like a time of great change. But
Nice.
yeah, Glenn from ViperChill, I sent him an email about something, and he wrote back and said, reply to my other email, dude. And I wasn't sure what he was talking about, and I ended up finding it in my spam folder or somewhere, but he'd asked me if I wanted to do some articles on ViperChill, but one of the things we discussed was he didn't really want to do that if I was anonymous. So we decided to do a big reveal post there as my first post on ViperChill. sort of like there's a amazing blogger called James Chartrand, and she used to write for Copyblogger as a male, and she said that she got better rates and better pay as a male, and so she had this sort of pen name, James Chartrand, and she did an incredible article called I think it's called "Why James Chartrand Wears Women's Underpants" on Copyblogger, which was her sort of reveal equivalent, and it was massive. It was enormous at the time because she was a really big writer. So we wanted to do something similar to that, and it went well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. That example you just gave. That's hilarious. But yeah, so I mean, do you kind of want to dig into, I know I wanted to make the main focus of the interview mostly on guest blogging, and I know that's a strategy that you've had a lot of success with, and building relationships with some of these bloggers. Obviously, I've got, I sent you this kind of like laundry list of stuff that we could talk about. Do you kind of want to talk? I figure I'll just kind of go through this like as I wrote it, and we can knock off one thing after another.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll look great. Let's do it.
Yeah. So the first thing, I brought up this. Obviously, we might kind of bounce around a little bit. I didn't structure this probably the best that I might have been able to, but the first question was coming up with content ideas. I've written myself. I'll just give a perspective. I haven't done a ton of guest blogs. I've done maybe about 4 of them now. 3 of them are published, and 1 soon to be published on another blog. But my thing was always coming up with ideas and like being able to fit the readers of, fit the audience of these other blogs. Are there ways that you kind of come up with brainstorming tools you might use, or any resources for that?
Probably not so much resources and tools, but I do sort of have a little process that I kind of follow and that has evolved for me over the years. I sort of start at the end result, and this is something I talk about on my blog and in the Subscriber Special Ops course, which I guess we'll get to later, but I sort of start with the end result, so what outcome do I want to get from this guest post? Do I want, long-term rankings on Google for a particular set of keywords, or do I want to drive traffic to a page on my blog that is then selling an affiliate or some other product, or perhaps promoting my mailing list? So I sort of figure out where I want the readers to go at the end of the guest posting kind of funnel. And then what I'll do is I'll go out and look for blogs or websites that have traffic that I think will match it, or an active group of readers, or perhaps they rank for a particular set of keywords on Google that I would like to rank for myself. So it really depends on what your outcome is for those particular guest posts as to where I look. And then once I find them, you can start building relationships with those bloggers if you haven't already, so that you have a bit of an in as a way to pitch the guest post in the future. But for me, it's all about I guess starting with my blog and what I want readers to do when they visit my blog, and then sort of work backwards from there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess the next question I had was, in terms of like length for a lot of these posts, you find that you're, really going after like what it is the owner of the blog would kind of look for based on like their, criteria. I know like some of them, they'll say, oh, well, we require a minimum of, 1,000 words or whatever the case. But is there like a typical length you might go after when writing guest posts?
Yeah, I guess for me, for the guest posts that I do for Blog Tyrant, they've all been really long except for one on Men with Pens. But the first guest post I think I did for Blog Tyrant was on ProBlogger, and it was a post called How to Make Your Blog Addictive Like World of Warcraft. And that was like a really big one. It was like 4,000 or 5,000 words, lots of pictures and graphics, and the list kind of set up. And I found that they always work really well. They get shared more. Those longer posts generally have a better uptake on social networks, Google Plus and Twitter and whatnot. So for me, it's always been about a combination of length and value without completely exhausting the topic. So that's something I try to talk about a little bit with my readers, is like, you want to pick an evergreen topic that's sort of focused on beginners, give it that original kind of twist, but you want to write about it really extensively to the point where people think this is an incredibly valuable topic, but not so extensively that there's nothing left to talk about, because people will, comment and share the post, and you want them to do that. So Neil Patel from QuickSprout, he did a test with his stuff a while ago, I think on Kissmetrics and his blog QuickSprout, where he tested long posts versus short posts in both the blogging format and the sales page format. And I think every example that he tested, the long post was a better option in terms of conversions and stats. So Yeah, I try to keep it, not long for the sake of it being long, but there is something to be said for, really long, detailed posts, especially in like a guest posting kind of scenario.
Yeah, and I know that I've heard like a lot of people, in particular, I know I linked you over to an interview I did with Steve Cam, and he talked about
Yeah.
how he used to blog every single day, and he would just kind of crank out posts, but now he, focuses more on like creating that epic content.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a perfect example. Like some of his posts just do incredibly well socially, but then also Google just absolutely loves them. He's got one that I wrote a Viper Chill post about, which is about the Paleolithic diet,
Yeah,
which is huge. I think he ranks above the Paleo website. He's next to the Wikipedia page, and it brings him 4 or 5 thousand unique visitors a day, which he then built a product around. And that is just a huge, exhaustive post that I think everybody who reads it shares it, or at least dives really deep into it. So yeah, it works well for him, absolutely.
yeah, because he put the time and effort into creating like an actual like awesome article about that topic.
Absolutely, yeah, it's huge. All of his stuff is. I mean, he's a great example of someone who does that kind of epic content, the long form content really well, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But so I guess moving on, I wanted to talk a little bit about backlinking strategy, and I know, you kind of talk about this a little bit in your course, and I don't know how much you want to reveal, but just the idea of sort of like, interlinking some of the guest posts between one another. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's backlinking is so important for bloggers, and it's something that's I think like eternally frustrating because it's changing so much, and Google is constantly changing their algorithm. So I guess I always preface this section by just sort of advising people that if they've got a blog that they really love, perhaps people sometimes call them a premium blog or a money blog. It's their main blog, their baby. You don't want to be too aggressive with any linking strategy that you do. You want it to be really natural. And you see companies like SEO Moz, which is now called Moz,
Yeah,
and Rand Fishkin from Moz always talking about the fact that it's less about backlinking and that kind of manipulation than it is now about creating great content and making sure that people link to it naturally. But that being said, there are some things you want to do to make sure you give yourself sort of the best possible opportunity to rank on for those money blogs. And like you hinted at, so with a guest post, like we were talking about before, if I have a particular, say, key phrase that I want to rank for, I'll make sure I find a blog that already ranks well for that particular key phrase or something thereabouts. And the links that I put in that blog post will sometimes be the anchor text of the keywords that I want to rank for, but you also don't want to push that too hard because, say if you wanted to rank for, what am I looking at here? USB microphones. If you just put USB microphones as the link too many times, Google can sort of tell that it's a manipulation, and you want it to be a natural backlink profile, so you don't want too many of the same thing. So it's good to mix it up, but at the same time, I do think that Google is still ranking backlinks and looking at anchor text really heavily. Guys like Glenn from Viper Chill, his course, he's showing that really quite definitively. I think that they're still ranking sites really well by having those kind of really rich anchor text backlinks. But it's sort of up to the reader to test how well it works for them. And the main thing I think is also if the content's good enough and ranks well enough, it doesn't matter if it's ranking your post or your guest post that you've done, because that guest post should ideally funnel people back to your website anyway. So having yourself appear on a different blog is totally fine.
Right. So in terms of like the actual strategy you might go into for backlinking, obviously, it's important to have varied anchor text, is what you're saying, as opposed to just, spamming something like 3 times in an article about, USB microphones, if that's what you're trying to get.
Yeah, for sure.
But like what are, like what would, in terms of, I don't want to dig into too much of the basics for people who might already know SEO. A lot of this is very widely out there, but obviously I would assume you kind of focus on the on-page elements. But are there anything else like you might do, like say you get one of these guest posts out there on a blog? Do you go after any like particular strategies for backlinking to that, or do you kind of let things happen naturally?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways I think you can sort of emphasize that naturalness of the post. That sounds a little bit weird, but one of the things that I do that I've heard Derek Halpern from Social Triggers talk about a little bit is really promoting the post once you've got it out there. So let's say you create, a fantastic long-form article on your blog about USB microphones, and it's the ultimate guide to choosing a USB microphone. Now, in that post, you might have links to your affiliate products, which are different microphones that you've reviewed, which you then make a commission when somebody buys one from your link. So what you then do is you go out and create guest posts around that particular topic, and those guest posts will funnel people back to that outcome. Now, with every post that you do on your blog, on other people's blogs, you can then do things like buy advertising to promote it. So if you've got, even just $30 or $40 to throw at some advertising on Stumble Upon paid discovery or Facebook ads, or a great one I've been using lately is called Blog Ads, which puts an ad on other blogs in the niche. And so what you're doing is you're driving traffic to those guest posts and to that original long form post on your blog. And what that does is that it speeds up the discovery process, because a lot of SEO is just getting your stuff discovered by people who are in who have authoritative websites or authoritative social accounts. So if you can throw some advertising and get an extra couple of thousand visitors to your website, there's a greater chance that you'll be discovered. So you can do things like that are off-site. But when it comes to the on-site linking, I guess it depends on how risky you want to be. But if you want to take a few risks, then you use a rich sort of anchor text, USB microphones or some equivalent that you want to rank for in Google. You do things like a lot of people say that it's better to have the link towards the top of the page. That's where there's more SEO value, more people click through. But for me, that stuff's sort of secondary to making sure you're reaching as many people as possible. I think the reach is much more an important thing to consider when you're trying to have a successful blog. It's all about reaching as many people as possible. And so that doesn't really matter if you do that through organic SEO rankings or advertising, as long as you can sort of get the ball rolling, and as long as your content is good enough that when people encounter it, they do something with it.
Right, makes sense. Yeah, no, and I think that's great advice. I like the fact that you even mentioned that putting a little bit of money, even maybe $20 to $40 into promoting a post. I feel like a lot of people wouldn't even think to do something like that with a guest post.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, you have to talk to the owner of the blog about that first. They might not feel, they might have different feelings about whether that's okay or not. But
yeah,
I was helping a friend who's got a new mobile app business going. We're doing some Facebook ads the other week, and it's crazy the amount you can spend and the conversions that he got for such a small spend. And every other business in the world, pizza shops and everything else you find in the phone book, all of those businesses advertise, and bloggers never seem to advertise. But especially with things like YouTube and Pinterest and Facebook, even Google AdWords is good. It's a little bit more complicated, but for such a small spend, you can get such amazing results as long as you're driving to a really quality kind of landing page.
Right. Yeah, I know. I actually I bought a course. It was very cheap. It was like $15 on how to use the new Facebook sponsored ads, which is like newsfeed ads versus like the blocks that you see on the right side. And people are appearing to get some pretty, really positive results. You can get clicks for maybe as mere pennies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this guy had I think we started with a spend of $300 or something like that, and he had thousands and thousands of clicks and conversions that were, it was around 10% in the end. So it's a phenomenal way to try it, to get new visitors, especially if you don't want to have the risks associated with sort of more aggressive SEO, I think, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll put links to that other one you mentioned to, was it blogads.com, did you say?
Yeah, absolutely. They've been really good. You need to create an ad for that, so it's not text-based, it's graphics. But if you have a really good ad, and that's another great thing, is it's really fun to test and split test which ads get the most click-throughs and then which ones convert the best. But if you find a really high traffic blog in a good niche, and you have a really kind of eye-catching ad, you can get thousands of visitors for such a small spend. It's a really good thing to check out.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that, and I'll probably link that in the notes as well, so people can look at that and determine if that's something they might want to use for their own business or blog.
Absolutely.
So something else I thought maybe we could touch upon a little bit more, and you already briefly mentioned it, was in this example obviously we're using a USB what was it, a USB microphone is that what you said?
That's right. Yeah. Right here.
So So I figured, if you were to, like, if that's what we're going after, we're trying to, sell USB microphones, maybe we've optimized it through Amazon affiliates or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
Like what are some, tips you might have for, kind of throwing in those money items, those products, or, maybe a service or whatever it may be that people are trying to buy. Like, I know obviously with a lot of things like with email and, subscribers, you want to make sure you're using opt-in forms and things like that, so you're capturing leads. But do you have any strategy behind, actually like product placement or anything that would actually earn you an affiliate sale?
Yeah, so I guess if you're looking at something like a USB microphone, I've always found the thing that converts the best is these kind of, we're talking about long form articles. So these long form articles that mention the product but aren't specifically about the product. There is obvious exceptions to that. Like something that converts really well is on Google anyway for organic search traffic is reviews. So like best microphone review, or review of this particular brand. If you can rank, number one for the most popular USB microphone brand, and then have a review post, that's obviously going to make a lot of money. But if you look at someone like we were talking before, Steve Cam, he's got that article, which I think is like the ultimate guide to the paleo diet. Mm-hmm. And so he ranks at number one or number two for that. People click through to that link, and then down the bottom of that article, there's a ad for his app that he developed, which is an app about whether foods are paleo. I think it's called Is It Paleo? So, people download that app. It costs them $1 or something, but he sells a phenomenal amount of those products through that post, and then that product, because it's his own, increases his own brand. So these kind of posts where you're discussing a topic that is about the affiliate, but not necessarily just centered on the affiliate product, can be really good. But it's also a really good idea to look at, like you mentioned, the email marketing. So if you've grown a mailing list, you can then promote related topics to that mailing list in emails or with other posts that you write. There really is like a huge variety of methods that you can promote affiliate products. But the most important thing I think is to split test. If bloggers are trying something and it's not working, then try something else and see which works better. It might be ads in your sidebar to affiliate products, or it might be just these long form articles that rank on Google over time that you can then push advertising to. You've got to, I think, experiment not just with the product itself, but with the traffic sources. A lot of people think that Google traffic is the ultimate, but there are other options out there, and sometimes the Google traffic is in a really kind of I don't really like a fickle kind of mindset. When I'm on Google, I generally am researching something really quickly, and I'll click the back button a lot, not necessarily go through everything. Not everybody's like that, but sometimes for me anyway, on Blog Tyrant, Google traffic is one of the worst sources of traffic that I've got. So it's important to experiment with other sources of traffic as well as the different affiliates and how you place them in those long posts.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting to know that even for you, I would have thought. I just read. I've been reading your blog now. I don't know. I want to say it's got to be at least over 8 months, maybe even do it as close to a year. But
thanks,
I would have. I've always thought, for whatever reason, like I can't remember where I originally found your blog, if it was from someone else, but it might have been from something I was searching on Google, and it just seemed like most of your content probably actually was ranking really well. But that's interesting to know that your main sources of traffic aren't coming from organic search.
Oh no, it is my main source of traffic. It's just not the best source of traffic. I'll give you an example. I've got this. If you type in About Us pages or Best About Us pages in Google, right. I've got a blog post that's the number one there, and that brings 2,000 or 3,000 unique visitors a day to my blog, and most of them are pretty useless. There's a lot of back clicking. People don't really go much deeper into the site, and I think it's it's that kind of post where people are doing research. So if they've typed in Best About Us pages in Google, they've probably seen 3 or 4 results that they like, or they're clicking Control with their mouse and just opening 5 or 6 different windows. So the traffic quality is not great. It does bring a lot of visitors, and some of them stick around. Some of them get pushed to an affiliate product that I've put in there, but by and large, I'd much rather have the equivalent number of visitors come from a guest post that I've done, where people have already kind of encountered me, are interested in my voice maybe or what I'm talking about, as opposed to just kind of this randomness that Google seems to attract.
Right, right. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I remember when you wrote the blog post about, getting like 9,000 some odd useless visitors or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's right.
I think
Yeah.
I commented and I said, it was funny because I remember your comment. I said, well, you should go check out Derek Halpern's example because, here's how he uses his about page and how he has like his opt-in form 3 times. And I think you
Yeah,
commented
yeah.
back and you were kind of like, oh, bloody Derek or something like that. I was
Yeah, it's true. Derek is always doing it
because he
right.
sort of like molded a lot of people with some of these things he's doing, like his feature box and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing a redesign now at the moment. We're just about to launch a new responsive theme and a bunch of new other things on Blog Tyrant, and his stuff does feature very heavily, although I wouldn't like to tell him that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping to interview him myself. Hopefully next year. He told me he's too busy right now, but
Oh, yeah, cool. He'll do it. He's a good guy.
yeah, I'm excited to have him on because I've been following him for a while too.
Yeah,
But
he's a good interview.
yeah, yeah. But this was something else, and I guess it kind of goes, into the whole topic a little bit of, knowing other people and connections is, you talked a lot about in your course, that, people will write these guest blog posts and they'll get the blog published, and they don't really think too much about like the owner and having that connection with the owner of these blogs and how that's been powerful for you. You gave an example where the owner of I think it was ProBlogger sent you like a message on Twitter and was like, I love it when you post on my site.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Darren from ProBlogger has been such a huge influence in my life. Like, I think ProBlogger was the blog where I first read an article about AdSense, where people would click these ads and you could make money, and it just absolutely blew my mind. But I've worked for he was part of a blog network called B5 Media, which I blogged for years and years and years ago in uni. And he's just around the corner in Melbourne, so he's always been like a really big inspiration. But I've never tried to cultivate the relationship with him as just a business one. I've always thought of him as kind of a mentor slash friend, and I'm sure he remembers me and knows who I am. We talk a little bit on Skype and email, but yeah, he's just those kind of relationships are just invaluable, not just for the fact that they give you guest posts, but because, like I say, they've been there and done it all before. And if you can cultivate that friendship, like I have with a few people who I consider like really quite good friends on the internet, like Pat from Smart Passive Income and Glenn from Viper Chill and Steve from Nerd Fitness, like those guys will talk on email, and if you need help, they're there to give it to you, and that's such an invaluable thing to have. Yes, it does open doors, and it opens doors to other bloggers and other marketers and whatnot, but I think just having that support network there, because being a blogger or an internet entrepreneur or whatever you call yourself, you're quite isolated, and it's not like you go out to networking drinks and things like that all the time. So it's really good to have that sort of support network there.
Yeah, I mean, have you found? I guess obviously, I've written some content on building connections and things like that. But in terms of like guest posting, have you found that like say you blog with one author? Have you found that they've like opened doors for you to be able to get articles published on other blogs or bigger blogs that might if you were to just like pitch them, they might be more apt to let you in if you were being introduced from one of these other bigger name people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it works even subtly. That works, and just by sort of the fact that you can say you've been on ProBlogger and Copyblogger and all these different sites. That is a really big door opener. But like I think Glenn from ViperChill probably saw my stuff on Smart Passive Income because he's really good friends with Pat, and I don't think that I would have been asked to write on ViperChill if it wasn't for that sort of connection there. And I don't know if Pat would have given me the guest post if I hadn't tried to be friendly with him prior to that. So, even absolutely, they do open doors for you. Personally, there's a guy called Danny Inney from Firepole Marketing.
Yep, I know Danny.
He reached out probably over a year ago now to a bunch of internet entrepreneurs to do a book called Engagement from Scratch. Guy Kawasaki and Brian Clark and a few other people, and he asked me to be in that, and that was really cool because all those people who featured in that book sort of have talked, and you can sort of reach out and say, oh, we're in this book together. And Danny's great like that at connecting people. So yeah, absolutely. I think even if the guest post doesn't go well in terms of driving traffic to your site, it is at least an in to start talking to the owner of that site and making building a relationship.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's really cool. Like I like how, you were obviously able at one point to build a relationship with Danny, and now he's coming back to you saying, "Hey, I'm working on this book. I'd love to have you."
Yeah, it was the other way around. Danny just reached out of the blue, and then because he did this great thing by putting us in this popular book, now he's asking us for favors all the time. He's constantly trying to get stuff back. No, I'm just
Yeah,
joking, Danny. It's all good.
that's
Yeah, it's
funny.
good.
Yeah,
It's a good strategy.
I've actually been speaking with one of their editors about a guest blog on their site,
Oh,
Fireball
cool, cool.
Marketing. Yeah, so that's it's kind of I got accepted to write the post. I've got to like reformat the whole thing because I kind of went off trail and it's just a whole mess. And coming up with the time to write a lot of this stuff is really my challenge with the day job. Whereas writing like good content takes a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge thing, and it's so important. I mean, when you get it right, the results are so phenomenal, though. So it is worthwhile, especially if they've got good editors. I do a little bit of writing for lifehack.org. Sometimes they, like their editors are really good, and it gets reviewed like 2 times. And I always hate getting my stuff reviewed. I always get really kind of furious. I think,
Yeah.
this is my style and whatnot, but you do improve a lot. The great example for me was Men with Pens, James Chartrand, who we talked about before. I was trying to get a guest post on her site for so long, and she rejected so many. It's the only person who's ever rejected my guest posts, and I was getting really upset about it. And finally, I got one, and it was well worth it. And I feel like my writing improved a lot because of her. But yeah, it is hard work. It is a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, what was the next piece I wanted to ask about? I guess this kind of I feel like we've maybe already like talked about it a little bit, but obviously like you've built relationships with some of these people like Pat and Glenn. How would you say that sort of like helped you in terms of blogging and guest blogging and anything to do with like your reach to building a bigger audience?
Yeah, so like I said, I think reach is like the most important thing for a blogger. Derek talks about it a little bit. I think he talked about it in an interview that I did with him a while ago that bloggers, there's this sort of famous blogging saying where you'd rather have 100 loyal subscribers than 10,000 unloyal subscribers. And Derek always says, well, why not have 10,000 loyal subscribers? That's a better answer. And I think he's totally right. The amount of reach you have dictates the amount of influence you have and the amount of money you make, and that's the whole purpose of Google, is getting traffic and finding new readers. So when you connect with these bloggers, it's great, like I said, as a support network. If you're stressed, or if you need advice about finding a new coder, or you're developing a plugin or whatever, they can hook you up with the right people. But also, just like on a really day-to-day level, if you write an amazing post and ask them to tweet it out, they do it. And people like Pat Flynn have got 100,000 plus followers, and same with Darren Rouse from ProBlogger. These guys, if you have done things that benefit them, are usually more than happy to help you promote your stuff. And so it's a really great kind of circle to be in, because you help them and they help you. And I think it's without without belonging to that kind of circle. It's not like a circle, like it's a secret circle or anything. Like every niche has those influential bloggers. Whether you're a fashion blogger or blogging about USB microphones, there's always going to be somebody who's got that reach, and connecting with them is just, I think, the most important thing for growing your own network and the amount of traffic that you can potentially reach, because they've already tapped into so much of the niche of the market.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's already like started to prove to me like as a means for making profit with my blog. I had someone follow me on Twitter using a program called TweetAdder because I
Yep,
had keywords in my Twitter profile that would have allowed him to target me. He
yep.
followed me, and his profile, like just from that brief introduction, looked engaging to me. You might know him. It's Tom Iro of Leaving Work Behind.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, freelance writer. So Tom, I ended up interviewing him like 2 months after following him, and then
Okay.
he sent out an email about someone that was doing like free coaching consultations that he was connected with. So I did that free consultation, talked to them for an hour. Someone by the name of Amanda Abella. They run a kind of a coaching like life consulting blog, and
Okay.
then I ended up interviewing her. And then about a month later, she emails me and says, "Hey, I just found this gig over on the ProBlogger job boards that might interest you." And I would have never been over there. I knew of the blog, but I knew of that job board, but I never ever go over there. and I got a gig, and now I get paid, $400 for submitting one interview a month to a magazine.
Yeah, that's perfect. It's a perfect example, and that's why the internet's so great. Like
Yeah.
all these different niches and circles connecting like that, and it's, like if you're helping somebody, they often will help you without even being asked for it. Like in your case, that was great.
Yep.
It is so important, and I'll do that more as part of their business plan, as sort of not just something that's extra to what they're doing, but as like the main part of what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. So I know we've kind of like dived into this whole relationship thing a little bit. I wanted to kind of go back on track with the guest posting a little bit.
Sure.
Um, in terms of results people should expect when they get these guest blogs out there. I know that, I think I watched a video from Pat once where he shows like this graph example where the traffic will, you'll see a spike, it'll go down and it'll spike and it'll go down, and then you kind of like over time that those spikes will turn into, you can build that up over time quite a bit. What would you say, like, when you really started out, like, was there a point, like, from when you started out guest blogging and getting your reach out there, like, when did it really start to take off for you?
I guess that's difficult to say because I've been pretty sporadic with how I do it. I mean, I know people like Glenn in the old days and Danny Inney, when they first started out, they did like a phenomenal amount of guest posts. It was like every day you'd see them on a new website. So they would have really experienced that kind of that effect. But for me, the way I do it has been more, partly because I'm a little bit lazy, but also because I'm trying to focus on different things. Is like I really kind of go after niches or topics with me. So if I'm trying to sell a USB microphone off of my blog, I'll focus on building guest posts and advertising around that particular topic for a little while and do a flurry of guest posts. So I do see, with ProBlogger articles, for example, in the old days when I did a few of those, I did 4 or 5 really long form ones, and they brought hundreds of email subscribers every time and a lot of traffic, and they do still continually bring, like Pat probably talked about that, it did level off. It doesn't always stay peaked or completely invisible, but as it does get ranking on Google quite well, they do continually bring new subscribers and new traffic. But I think, in terms of reach, if you're talking about reach, it's important to not give up, and that's something I've been realizing a little bit lately, is that I have in the last 6 or 8 months, because Blog Tyrant's gotten so big, sort of just focused on that, but I really need to be tapping into new audiences all the time, and you can do that with advertising, SEO, or guest posts really. So I've been buying a bit of advertising, but the guest posting engagement that you get is just so valuable. I think when I first started out, I tried to do three or 4 guest posts for every post that I wrote on my blog, and that ratio I think was about right, and I probably need to get back to it. And I think, if you can maintain that schedule of 3 guest posts for every post that you write on your blog, the traffic will just, increase exponentially. It's probably a really good idea.
So what would you say on that point? I mean, I know, on your blog in particular, you're not blogging every day. You're writing, great content that you're putting out there, maybe once every, I would say, like 1 or 2 weeks on average?
Yeah, 1 or 2 weeks, yeah.
So I mean, you're basically doing 3 to 4 blog posts, on average a month, and then you'd go and write multiple blog posts to kind of link back to those and get those those are basically your money posts in a way, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, like for Blog Tyrant is one of my examples of a site that I sort of own and use that strategy for. Not every post is an affiliate post. Like I published one about 20 minutes ago that's on about Fiverr.
Yep, I read it.
There's nothing in there that makes me any money. That's just a content post that I think people would be interested in. And usually I'll mention an affiliate or do an affiliate related post every probably 3 posts. It sort of depends on what niche you're in and how you tackle it, whether your readers are receptive to it or not. But I never really sort of explicitly just do like a review post of a microphone or a camera or anything like that. I've occasionally done that with things that people have requested, like blog hosting or email software like Aweber or whatever. So when I do write those posts, I try to make sure that they still provide value for people who don't use them. It's not just a review. And then, yeah, the guest posts that I do around those topics, again, are trying to build interest in the topic generally. So I'm not just doing a guest post that is pushing USB microphones on some other microphone site. I'm trying to do a post that reaches a lot of people and generates sort of genuine interest, so that if they do encounter my post, they're already in a kind of buy-ready kind of mindset.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that makes sense because obviously that's the ultimate goal is to, if you want to make a little bit of extra money every month with your blog, then
yeah, and it's important to have a variety of them. One of the things I constantly do is get stuck on one particular source of income. If one particular post is making me a couple of $100 a week, then I think, this one is a really good thing to focus on. So I focus on that to the detriment of everything else. But the great thing about blogging and affiliate marketing, and Darren Rouse talks about this quite a lot, is that over time, as you keep adding various streams, that all does accumulate. And it's something you've kind of got to stick at and have ways. Something Chris Ducker actually from chrisducker.com taught me. He's really big on virtual assistants and outsourcing. Is that you really need to be doing less work yourself and start getting more people to help you be more exponential, so that if you are only doing one post on your blog because that's sort of the way you do it, then at least you're doing infographics and videos and all these other kind of content elsewhere on the internet that are driving traffic back to your main money site, so that you're not sort of stagnating.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's great advice, and I've seen some of his stuff too. I know Pat talks about him all the time. I think he was on his podcast as well.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's so funny, like all the people you're mentioning, like I follow all these people and I know who everybody is because I've been trying to get really I've only been online marketing for about a year, but once you start following some of these people, it just kind of branches out and you see everyone's all connected.
Yeah, it's funny, the internet's a bit like that. Everybody gets in their own kind of little corner of it, but I think guys like Pat Flynn, Chris Ducker, Viper Chill, Copy Blogger, Pro Blogger, everybody knows them. And it doesn't really matter kind of what niche you're in. They're the ones that everybody seems to follow because they consistently do provide so much value to their readers. We're pretty lucky to have them around, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. Definitely agree. But I had a few other questions about guest blogging, and then I figure we could probably wrap things up shortly. But the other things I wanted to ask about is, I know obviously when you're putting a guest post out there, you kind of have, in some sense, depending on if they allow backlinks within the post, you might have a limited window where you can really get that reach to get people to come back to you. I quickly, for example, I looked on Neil Patel's blog last week, and he had a guest blog by Jamie Tardy of Eventual Millionaire.
Okay.
And I quickly read the post and just I don't know, I think I was at work, so I was sort of rushing, and I wanted to get a comment out there because it's kind of a neat tactic to drive a little bit of traffic if you're one of the top 10 comments,
Yeah, absolutely.
But I wanted to make so I made a valuable comment, but I was oh, Neil, blah blah blah, and then I went back and reread it later when I had more time, and I was oh God, I look like an idiot now. so I know that you've got kind of that limited space where you can really say this is a guest post or this is by who and who. I don't know if you have any tips on a byline. I know a lot of people keep it very, very to a minimum.
Yeah, I mean I've thought about that a little bit since you mentioned that in the email, and it's a really good question. I probably haven't put enough thought into that, or as much thought into that as I should have. In the old days with the Pro Blogger guest posts and the Copy Blogger guest posts that I was doing, I really wanted to just figure out a way to be distinctive. I thought that was the most important thing because there's so much noise in that internet marketing space. And one of the things was that original post on selling that blog for $20,000. It's not a lot of money for 8 months' work, but it's something that a lot of people, I think, aspire to for their own blogs, and it sort of gives them some hope. And it's not something you hear about a lot with blogging. So with my byline, I would always emphasize that Ramsay, or at that time it was just the Blog Tyrant. The Blog Tyrant has sold blogs for $20,000, and that was the main backlink I'd pushed people with that post. And that brought a lot of subscribers, especially because the posts that I was writing on those specific guest posts where that byline appeared was always about building up a blog or building up a valuable blog or an email list or selling a blog. and so that the traffic was already really ready to opt into my mailing list. But yeah, I think now, like, one of the things that Copyblogger probably started was giving people Google authorship on their, when they do guest posts on Copyblogger, you essentially become an author of Copyblogger, and you get that authorship markup in the Google rankings. And that's probably the first thing that you'd have to make sure you do now, is make sure you get, make sure that the blog where you're doing the guest post allows you to do that, because that is so valuable if you are intending on ranking that post in Google, or helping it rank in Google a bit nicer, to have your face in there and linking back to your Google Plus profile, so you're getting that sort of added bit of reach. But the main thing I would say, especially if you're not getting backlinks in the post itself, is just find a way to be distinctive, and then just make sure that the post that you're choosing, so the blog that you're choosing to post on, is always really niche specific. Don't pick blogs that are that are really random, or that have a really general kind of nature. Make sure you're writing articles on blogs that are specific about very specific topics, so that the traffic that does come through is really ready.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice, because obviously, we want to. I know, like, some of these blogs I've been on, and there's certain networks where you can go and you can find, like, places to guest blog, and it's like I'm looking at the blogs, and either they don't have traffic, or it's just so general,
Yeah,
like, I don't know,
exactly.
where it's almost like a waste of time,
Yeah, a lot of the blogs, I think, in their quest to get heaps of content from guest bloggers, have just really killed their blogs. They used to be such sources of quality, but by adding so much content and so many different authors, they've really kind of diluted it. And I think that's something that's really important to consider when you are looking for a place to guest blog. Is you don't want that at all. You want that reference, as it were. Like, if you are appearing on Smart Passive Income, you want Pat to endorse you. That's more valuable than the links, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Now, do you have any tips on maybe, like, places to find that might be good for your niche? I know, like, one of the popular sites is alltop.com. You can kind of, like, narrow down and find niches there. I don't know if there was any resources you might use to kind of, like, find blogs in your space.
For me, it's all about Google. Like, if I want to, back to the USB microphones, if I'm trying to find a place to put a guest post that I want to rank for that term, then obviously I want it to be a blog or a website that is ranking well on Google, because I want to kind of get their traffic, as it were. So for me, like I said, I start with the results. So what do I want them to do from this guest post? And if it's sign up to my email list, then what's my offer on my email list? At the moment, it's a ebook on how to increase your email subscription rate by over 120%. So I really want traffic that is going to be interested in growing a mailing list. So then it's about going on Google and searching for the kind of blogs that have traffic, or posts that are really niche specific to that topic. And you got to consider things like, if let's say I was going to get a guest post on Nerd Fitness, and I know that Nerd Fitness, from Steve Cam we were talking about before, has this post about the Paleolithic diet. So if I had a Paleolithic affiliate that I wanted to promote, well, I know he's got the #1 post on that. And if I do another post on a paleo topic to promote my affiliate back on my blog, well, then I kind of know that at the end of his post there's going to be a section on related articles. And so when those thousands and thousands of people get to the end of his post, they might see my post, which is on a similar topic, pop up there. So for me, it's all about, like, assessing how well they're performing on Google, and then how well that traffic is going to convert for me. And I don't really actually use any other websites to find a place to post.
Yeah, no, that's great information. I think that mostly wraps up my questions on guest blogging. I did have, and I feel like this is sort of like I'm going backwards. I probably should have asked this at the beginning, but I thought it'd be good for maybe some listeners to kind of hear about, like, some of the struggles you've had, in building out these blogs, and maybe going after, even guest blogging. Like, what are some of the biggest like hurdles you've run into?
Oh, they're never-ending hurdles. That's important, I guess. Is like, it is a constant struggle, like blogging. Even Pat from Smart Passive Income, he works as hard as anybody on that stuff, and so I think that's important to recognize, that it's never really easy, unless even the guys who've made like huge money, like Zuckerberg and stuff like that, they still work harder than probably any of us.
Yeah.
And so that's important to recognize, that there always is going to be a struggle. I'm still learning myself not to let it get me down when something doesn't go my way, or if something bad happens, your site crashes or whatever. It's not the end of the world. It's just the internet. You can start again, and you can get it. There's usually a way to get around it. That's a big lesson to learn. But I guess the other one for probably new bloggers specifically is when I was first starting out my business, and when I first realized that I wanted to work full time from the internet, I used to clean a gym in the morning. I used to get up at 5:30 a.m. and go and clean this gym for 4 hours, and then come home and work on my blogs for the rest of the day, because I wanted to give myself enough money to sort of pay the rent and eat, but not have a job that took up so much time that I couldn't work on the stuff that I thought was going to be my long-term goal. So you've got to kind of find a way to balance that, those difficult things of putting food on the table, but also giving yourself enough time to focus on what's really important. And that balance can be a bit of a struggle sometimes. But I guess it's important to really know what you want to do in the long term, and so have like that year goal, the year-long goal, and the 6-month goal, so you're not kind of getting overwhelmed by it all. That's been really important for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice, and I know, the sacrifice thing even for me is big, because I work kind of weird hours. Like, for example, in my day job, I work right now an 11 to 8 o'clock shift, and
Right.
I find myself up till like midnight, and then I'll wake up at like 9, and I have maybe a couple hours in the morning. Sometimes I bring my girlfriend to work, so I'm technically going in at 10, and that's my whole day. So
Yeah, exactly.
either, I'll use, like, say, for example, my lunch break to spend some time, like, jotting notes into Evernote, or writing an article, or watching a video.
Yeah, okay.
And then, if I have free time at work, usually after 5 o'clock, it's dead. All the managers are home. I'll work on my blog stuff.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
like, finding all the time you can, and then, even tonight, I came home and my girlfriend had dinner, and it was like, it's about 10 o'clock here now, and I know in your side of the world it's what, like 2 o'clock or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Massachusetts in the U.S. and he's in Australia, for those of you who don't know. But yeah, my girlfriend's like, "Oh, I didn't realize you had an interview tonight," and she went and got, she wants to watch like The Walking Dead, and I was like, "Well, we'll start it," but I was like, I contacted this guy like 4 months ago, so he wins. Sorry.
Yeah, it's tricky. I feel a little bit like a zombie, if that helps.
Yeah, no, I mean, so like we like paused it, and I'm like, well, you're gonna have to wait for me. We can't finish it right as all the attacks are happening in the show. It's really funny.
You've got a good girl.
Yeah. So she understands. That's what's good. It's just if I was up here, playing Battlefield or something, that's where she'll get upset.
Oh, I got to play some Battlefield after this, man. Battlefield 3.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'll have to get your tag. I knew you played because you mentioned it in your interview with Steve,
absolutely.
and in your course, I like saw the icon on your desktop. I was like, oh, he plays Battlefield.
Yeah, a little bit too much sometimes.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's pretty much all I had. We've covered a lot. I did want to ask, for the listeners, if maybe you could share a few of the guest blogs that share some links so people could check those out. And
yeah, absolutely.
Written. But yeah,
cool. Thanks for having me, man. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks a lot for coming on and taking the time out of your day.
Anytime. Thanks very much.
Yep. Bye.